I've gotten a few comments asking me how I animate as fluently as I do. And since my next animation is taking quite a while, I figured this would be a good video to make in between that. In order to explain my process, I need to explain the 12 principles of animation first. Well, just 5. All the principles are pretty important when you're animating, but I'm just going to focus on these 5 principles because they're the most relevant. Slow in and slow out. The main idea is that when an object moves, it will start up slow, speed up, and then slow down when it comes to a stop. What I see a lot of beginner animators do, and what I did when I was a beginner, is they'll have a lot of frames evenly spaced out. You shouldn't do this as it makes your animation feel very stiff and robotic. Instead, you should favor them to one side. When an action is starting, there should be more frames on that side, and as it speeds up, there will be less frames. Typically in the middle of the action, and when it comes to a stop, it will have more frames on that side, thus making it slower. You can see this in my animations, and it's pretty much how I always animate. Anticipation. Basically, anticipation is when a character is about to perform an action, they will first move in the opposite direction of the action to wind up for it. For example, if you were to jump, you don't just start standing up and then suddenly shoot upwards. You would crouch down first to gather energy to push yourself off the ground when you jump. That's anticipation, and it applies to pretty much any action. And you don't need to have 10 frames of anticipation in order for it to look good. Sometimes 1 frame is all you need. And most of the time I just use 1 or 2 frames. Though there have been a few times where I've used more, but I'll get into that later. There's also what I call the opposite of anticipation, overshoot. It's pretty similar to anticipation, but instead of a wind-up beforehand, overshoot is the character going past the action before settling back. Anticipation and overshoot go hand in hand, and everything I said about anticipation also applies to overshoot. Arcs. People and other living things move in circular motions, or arcs. I don't really have a solid explanation for this one, as I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The tip I'll give is this. When you're going to animate a character, plan out the motion by drawing an arc, and then have your character follow that arc. I really hope this helps. Follow through and overlapping action. This is my favorite principle of animation because it looks so good when you get it right. What it is when your character moves, any appendages attached to the character will lag behind it, such as a cape or long hair. Say your character is wearing a cape and they jump. When they jump, the cape will lag behind them for a few frames before it catches up. And when they land on the ground, the cape will continue moving before settling back. This is why I like giving my characters capes, because it looks so good when it's animated. It makes it look so fluid and adds a whole lot more life to the animation. This principle doesn't just apply to loose appendages like capes and hair, it also applies to limbs. Say your character has their arm up and it's going to move down. The upper arm will move first, and the lower arm will move second, and the hand will lag behind the lower arm. When the arm reaches its position, the hand and, to an extent, the lower arm will overshoot and then settle back. Timing. What I would argue is the most important principle for beginners. The easiest way to explain timing is more frames equal slower movement, less frames equal faster movement. Remember back in the anticipation section when I said sometimes I use multiple frames of anticipation? Sometimes I want the wind-up to be really slow because the next action is going to be really fast. I'll have a lot of frames on the wind-up, making it slower, and fewer frames on the action, making it faster. Timing goes hand in hand with all the other principles I've mentioned. Think about how fast you want your animation to be and then place your frames accordingly. Those are the principles that helped me animate more fluently. I recommend you watch Alan Becker's tutorial on the 12 principles of animation. He explains things way better than I did, especially arcs. He also explains all 12 principles, where I just explained 5. I also recommend you practice. You're not going to understand how to use these principles right away, so don't feel discouraged when your first attempt doesn't look good. I wasn't always able to animate as well as I do now, and I had to practice and fail a couple of times. Just don't get discouraged when you fail. When, not if. Use that opportunity to see what you can do better next time and ultimately improve. Anyway, that's it from me. I will return to drawing pictures on my iPad screen and playing whatever video game I'm hyperfixated on the time of running this script.